The streetlights extinguished, despite this being precisely when they should illuminate, but they reignite. This knowledge weighs on me. Just as I understand everything will now conclude for me exactly as it did for my companion. She is ravenous, perpetually famished. No, she tears beings apart, not destroying bodies but consuming your soul's essence, your emotions, compelling you to commit atrocities. Anyone encountering her transforms into a monster. I recall everything, including my actions, and now await my destiny, for her hunger remains eternally insatiable. I am dragging along a woman who betrayed her son, betrayed his memory, my best friend's mother, and she shall answer for everything. While we walk, I'll share a fascinating tale with her, and afterward, she'll perish. I was merely 20 then, unconcerned with serious matters. My existence was simple. I cherished living. As the saying goes, you have but one life, experience it fully. So I lived, despite hardships and challenges, knowing they were surmountable. My friend often joked that solutions always exist until your coffin lid closes. Dark humor served as his life philosophy, yet every jest contains only a fraction of humor. The day everything began remains indelibly etched in my memory. It marked the terminus of normalcy. Like everyone, we immediately sought temporary employment with immediate payment. Our dream was a weekend getaway for relaxation, while maintaining our personal expenses. The search was prolonged, as balancing studies and employment proved inconvenient. Then we encountered a peculiar advertisement, permanently relocating abroad, seeking responsible individuals to maintain deceased daughter's grave. Compensation generous, will remain contactable, all necessary expenses covered. A telephone number appeared below. We deliberated extensively. On one hand, it seemed unusual. Typically people simply departed. Some requested relatives' assistance, but relatives rarely showed diligence. Such graves often became neglected. On the other hand, the task wasn't particularly challenging, especially considering these people would handle all maintenance requirements and expenses. They promised constant availability. We debated, reviewed other opportunities, and ultimately decided to call. After all, what complexity could grave maintenance entail? A woman answered, inquiring about our age and our interest in this position. Satisfied with our responses, she proposed meeting at the cemetery, but strictly before 7 p.m., citing her lengthy journey home afterward. We agreed. Evening at a cemetery would certainly prove less comfortable, despite our disbelief in superstitions. My friend expressed nervousness regarding her certainty of our interest before meeting. Nevertheless, we traveled there, anxiety mounting, uncertain what awaited us. That thought proved prescient. We should have departed without attending this meeting, allowing life to continue unaltered. As our approach continued, my desire to leave intensified. Our intuition functioned accurately, but this time we regrettably disregarded it. We arrived at the appointed time, with 4 hours remaining before the 7 p.m. deadline. The woman had arrived earlier and awaited us. Her appearance suggested at least 60 years of age. Her eyes appeared dimmed, and I comprehended why. Burying one's child represents unimaginable cruelty. Few recover from such trauma, regardless of the child's age or whether they had additional children. To parents, we forever remain children, and nothing surpasses the horror of burying your offspring. Hello, we called you earlier, we said. Observing her exhausted, tormented countenance proved difficult. Hello, such young people. Unfortunate to see you pursuing such employment. She examined us fearfully before composing herself. We'll only maintain the grave, tend to it properly when needed. Don't worry, we'll perform everything honestly. Photo documentation if required, though I am unsure of its appropriateness given the location. Inexplicably, I wished to comfort her. I believe you, boys, but you're so young. Working at a cemetery, few would agree. It's hardly an ideal setting. She gazed heavily at the wrought iron gates. Fear the living, not the dead, Ruslan commented abruptly. Russ, Could you refrain from such remarks? This person is grieving, I admonished. While recognizing his statement's validity, I hesitated to distress the woman further. Who knows, boys, who knows? Her gaze bore into us with such intensity that my own soul ached, yet her words contained something cautionary. Unfortunately, I realized this too late. We entered the cemetery grounds, where silence reigned, interrupted only by an elderly security guard greeting us, inquiring about her well-being, addressing her as Elena Petrovna. I realized I neglected to ask her name. She hadn't introduced herself either. Perhaps she simply overlooked this detail, or the advertisement had identified her merely as Vita. According to the guard, the woman visited frequently, maintaining the grave and burning candles. Previous workers had fled rapidly, initially behaving erratically, then robotically, ultimately vanishing completely. This failed to deter us. We concluded these individuals had merely feared the location's atmosphere and silence. Perhaps they internalized it excessively or simply sought to abscond with payment. Indeed, the environment wasn't particularly pleasant. Everything exuded sorrow. Even trees and flowers appeared withered, as if they accompanied each soul on its final journey. En route to our destination, we observed completely abandoned sites. The sight was disturbing. Broken crosses, headstones, everything neglected and somewhat frightening. Conversely, the realization that someone might similarly forget you proved painful. Perhaps your relatives have also departed this world. Guards previously maintained these areas until prohibited. Who would willingly undertake such responsibilities when personal troubles abound? Adjacent to our assigned grave lay another, with yet another several rows distant. Someone else had experienced loss today. A melancholy sensation overwhelmed me. My chest seemed inflamed with grief. These individuals would never return home, never embrace their beloved children. They ceased existing, as if they never existed at all. Their possessions, unfinished tasks, photographs, and house slippers remain in memory, soon to be discarded or redistributed, like most belongings. Some may consider my words nonsensical, but understanding my narrative remains crucial. Never forget those you buried, especially if you promised remembrance. Never stand before a grave requesting visitations in dreams from those departed. Never detain them, don't betray them, never. I deliberately avoided viewing the headstone, reluctant to see this woman's daughter's photograph. I wished to postpone that moment. I stood, observing her behavior. She shed no tears but caressed the cold stone, poured a glass of vodka, placed a piece of fresh bread and a pickled cucumber, then consumed a second glass before smashing it against the tombstone. Yes, may you rest there as you ruined our lives, you wretch. I was stunned, not alone in my reaction. The woman's face displayed hatred, even rage and disgust. Her eyes reflected not grief but accusation. I never witnessed such a gaze, as if addressing condemned cattle, but had I known then, I wouldn't have judged her. Ruslan and I exchanged glances, bewildered by this development. Though her daughter occupied the grave, my initial perception of her grief-stricken state transformed into sensing her apparent relief, as if unburdened. I remained uncertain how to respond or what to say, ignorant of their history. Yes, boys, I am such a terrible mother, but you don't understand what I endured with her or continue to experience. You don't comprehend what transpired. The woman bowed her head gravely, turning toward the monument. I followed suit. Until now, I avoided examining the headstone. Upon looking, I beheld an image I never forget. While many people possess beauty, others exude an incendiary, fateful quality. This girl, in life, had been fateful indeed. Her photograph alone devastated me. My heart refused to acknowledge her permanent departure, that she would never rise from the damp earth, that we would never meet. Ruslan attempted to decline this employment, but Valeta Gennadievna shook her head, stating Ruslan remained free to leave, while I had already succumbed. She declared herself liberated and, though this sin might remain unforgiven, She could endure no longer. She recognized her irredeemable transgressions and subsequently committed another, the most reprehensible and despicable of all. My companion struggled to comprehend her statement, but the woman deposited a substantial sum on the small table before departing. He attempted pursuit but failed. I observed him running, yet he couldn't overtake her. He began crossing himself when approaching the grave to retrieve me proved impossible. Everything appeared hallucinatory, and I remained indifferent to his concern for me. I was enchanted, aware of my entrapment. Meek, what's happening? Ruslan eventually reached me, though appearing extremely pallid. Mish, let's leave this place, shall we? His face exhibited numerous blemishes, resembling bruises with ruptured capillaries. Russ, what's wrong with you? Where's Beleda Genadivna? I experienced a sensation of awakening, feeling slightly disturbed, my interior convulsing from shock. Meek, we need to escape and obliterate this place from memory. Ruslan surveyed our surroundings anxiously. I dismiss supernatural phenomena, but I absolutely believe humans can be drugged for significant sums. That woman behaved strangely. Nobody commemorates a beloved daughter that way. Like during childhood, he enumerated facts, folding down fingers sequentially. She left excessive currency, and judging by the odor, they clearly inhaled something. A prosecutable offense, my friend. Let her implore whatever deity she chooses that we don't report her. His nervousness was evident, matching my own. The entire scenario felt absurd, prompting our desire to depart. Agreed. Turning once more toward the girl's photograph, I shuddered. It had vanished from the monument. I blinked repeatedly, but the image remained absent. I disclosed nothing to my friend as we walked, continuously scanning our surroundings. We abandoned the money, leaving it where it lay. The prospect of someone appropriating it seemed inconsequential. The critical factor was our non-involvement. Ruslan messaged Beleda Genadivna regarding the abandoned funds, receiving an instantaneous response declaring its irrelevance. We planned to question the guard upon exiting, but his post was vacant. Glancing back, we nearly leapt from surprise. There she stood, the girl from the photograph, positioned on the path. Clad entirely in black, her beauty remained undeniable as she gazed directly at me. This fact remained indisputable. I nudged Ruslan, announcing her presence. My friend froze, refusing to turn. He merely stated that witnessing her would drive him to madness, insisting we proceed. My limbs felt like cotton. My entire body seemed penetrated by needles, yet I couldn't divert my gaze. Something magnetized me toward her, enveloping me in something web-like. Fear existed but remained somewhat detached, sequestered internally. Laughter echoed throughout the cemetery. I might have attributed this to hallucination had Ruslan not flinched. While understanding he heard it too, before I could confirm, he interrupted me. Mish, please maintain silence, absolute silence, let's go. Otherwise, I'll completely disintegrate into panic. He dragged me toward the exit as walking became increasingly laborious. Though tempted to respond, I clenched my teeth more tightly, preserving silence. Upon exiting the cemetery grounds, breathing became easier. The path stood empty. The influence dissipated. My friend's breathing became labored, blood emerging from his nose, a typical response to nervousness or fright. We avoided discussing the incident, proceeding on foot toward the bus stop to regain composure. Passers-by observed us critically, but this seemed trivial as we walked, attempting to reintegrate with reality. I remain uncertain about the exact nature of our experience. Perhaps we indeed encountered some substance, but repeating it seemed undesirable. The sole element that captivated me was the girl herself. She dominated my thoughts, seemingly infiltrating beneath my skin, becoming somehow meaningful. Reaching the bus stop, we still resisted conversation, perhaps wisely. What could we possibly communicate? That we experienced fear without precisely identifying its source? The woman's peculiar behavior continuously occupied my thoughts, her departure remaining inexplicable. Boarding the bus, I appreciated the sparse passenger count. For undetermined reasons, I craved space, tranquility, and silence. Reflecting on the cemetery's peacefulness and quietude, I immediately suppressed these thoughts, recognizing their disturbing nature. Unnoticed by me, I began scrutinizing passengers, perceiving them as somehow deficient, irritating me. I contemplated why they continued living while she didn't. Observing Ruslan, I noticed him wearing headphones, nervously manipulating a lighter. I questioned his existence, its purpose, and considered what might occur if he ceased living while she returned. My thoughts flowed incomprehensibly, yet seemed justified. Surely severing an artery, providing no assistance, would terminate his existence, potentially uniting her with me instead. What transgression would swapping their positions constitute? He experienced life. She hadn't. Unconsciously, I developed resentment toward his continued respiration, my hand extending toward him. Mish, what's wrong? Ruslan recoiled sharply as I emerged from this strange paralysis. What? My comprehension remained limited, my mind utterly chaotic. Why are you regarding me with such hostility? Ruslan warily observed me, noting my still extended hand. What explanation could I provide? As the implications of my thoughts penetrated my consciousness, I recoiled from my friend. Offering no explanation, I disembarked at the subsequent stop. Fortunately, he refrained from following. My legs propelled me autonomously. I failed to immediately recognize my direction, back toward the cemetery. Upon reaching the gates, I froze, prepared to scream. Checking my watch, I trembled. The time approached 7 in the evening. The woman's warning remained in my memory, now generating fear. Turning to retreat, I became immobilized. She summoned me. I resisted returning to her. Release me, please, allow me to depart. Fear remained absent, perhaps reflecting psychological dysfunction. External observers might perceive me as deranged, but this seemed irrelevant. Every fiber detected vibrations from her voice. Coldness invaded my eyes as darkness descended. My surroundings blurred together as I maintained my position. Neither turning toward her nor escaping remained possible. My limbs transformed to cotton, weakening beneath me. Something frigid touched my face, yet I remained motionless. Strange images populated my mind. Walking with her, kissing her, holding her hand, hearing her laughter. Unconsciously, I retreated until contacting the cemetery gates. The metal instantly scorched my back, eliciting her scream. My eyes opened, slowly rotating. I beheld her standing beyond the gates, arms extended toward me. Her eyes appeared entirely black, lips blue, matted hair shedding soil. Beneath curved, elongated nails lay darkness. Her clothing dragged along something red and soiled. She extended her arms toward me, but the gate's lattice burned them. Who are you? I stared, disbelieving my own vision, but she couldn't respond. Misha, leave, flee. Ruslan sprinted toward me, brandishing a crucifix and some bottle. I hesitated, experiencing no fear, wishing to intercept my friend but finding myself vocally paralyzed. Ruslan reached me, spraying water from the bottle, provoking only her laughter. Threatening her with the crucifix, as he approached closer, she seized this very symbol. Misha, Ruslan screamed. I attempted to assist him but remained immobilized. Internally, I recognized my obligation to rescue him, but a solitary thought dominated. That this situation was proper, that her hunger demanded satisfaction, that she deserved life, if only momentarily. My friend screamed while I averted my gaze, hearing everything, his pleas for assistance, her laughter, and I rejoiced in her amusement, smiling. Everything seemed appropriate. When Ruslan briefly grabbed me, attempting to escape her grasp, I merely pushed him away, desiring her sustenance. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as his screams gradually faded into silence. Darkness descended upon the street outside, and the cemetery gates swung open of their own accord. The pale-skinned young woman grasped my hand firmly, guiding me forward. I followed her obediently, stepping over my friend who lay motionless on the ground, paralyzed by fear. She led me toward her final resting place while everything around us began to howl and moan. The trees creaked ominously, but my attention remained fixed solely on her. Her skin possessed a dark gray hue, yet this detail failed to disturb me. I felt no fear in her presence. Her grave had been excavated. We positioned ourselves on a nearby bench. "I am famished," she whispered, her voice harsh and grating. "Bring me another human. The younger they are, the longer I can remain by your side." Her command was sharp, and I complied without hesitation. Using her fingernail, she sliced open my palm and sprinkled damp soil from her grave onto the wound. She murmured something about binding us together for eternity while I sat beside her, content in her company. "What's this, you hungry creature? Got yourself a meal?" The unexpected voice made me flinch and turn. The girl hissed and leapt onto the bench, drawing her legs beneath her. An elderly woman approached us slowly, dragging Ruslan behind her. He moved like a puppet, seemingly unaware of his surroundings. "Leave, now." The girl's voice had transformed into something so repulsive that I shuddered. When I turned to look at her again, I cried out in horror. The beautiful girl had vanished, replaced by a decomposing corpse. The undead being immediately seized my throat and gazed into my eyes. I felt myself falling into darkness, seeing only the beautiful girl once more as my terror subsided. "I'll destroy you, wretch. I am no longer bound to you," the elderly woman declared, clutching long branches in her hands. "Begone, sorceress. You cannot defeat me," the corpse shrieked before lunging at the woman. What transpired before me defied comprehension. The elderly woman cast Ruslan aside, and he struck his head but remained eerily silent. The woman waved bundles of herbs while chanting incantations as the girl corpse bounded frantically around her, attempting to seize her. A powerful wind arose, causing nearby trees to sway violently. Their branches lashed against my face, burning and scratching my skin. I desperately wanted to escape, to hide, to run away. My fear returned alongside my awareness of the situation. The more the branches struck me, the more lucid I became. "Mother!" I screamed when my consciousness fully returned. My hand wasn't merely cut. It bore a festering wound, with blood dripping directly onto the girl's photograph that lay at my feet. I distinctly recalled that the photo hadn't been as vibrant as it appeared now, and the way my blood dripped onto it seemed profoundly unnatural. Ruslan lay near another grave, suffering an epileptic seizure. Foam spilled from his mouth, and judging by his blue lips, he was dying. I rushed toward him, ignoring the chaos surrounding us, but before I could reach him, she tackled me to the ground. The elderly woman grabbed her by the hair and began whipping her with the herb bundles, occasionally striking me as well. Then lightning flashed, striking nearby. I watched as the elderly woman caught fire, as the corpse girl cackled maniacally, as lightning struck her gravestone, causing her to cry out and begin dissolving into her grave. The dead girl stared at me while the cut on my hand burned intensely, turning black. I ran to my friend, hoping to help him, but realized it was too late. Ruslan lay with eyes wide with horror. His tongue was missing, and his body was contorted unnaturally, as though he had been turned inside out. I knew that during such seizures, the body convulses violently, similar to a high fever. I cradled his head in my lap. It had been cracked open on the nearby stone, his blood everywhere. How long I sat there or how the groundskeeper found me remains unclear, memories I preferred to suppress. The old man seemed to understand what had occurred when he discovered the charred, nearly unrecognizable remains of the elderly woman, the shattered headstone of her daughter's grave, and Ruslan's lifeless body in my arms. "She consumed him, just like she did with others," he mumbled, sitting beside me and pouring a glass of vodka. "Yes, honor your friend." I sat silently, begging Ruslan's forgiveness, blaming myself entirely while repeatedly glancing toward the girl's grave. The groundskeeper noticed my gaze, shook his head, and advised me to die quickly, warning that otherwise, much blood would stain my hands. That was precisely what I wanted, to die immediately, to be with my friend, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. The entire incident seemed delusional and absurd in retrospect. I fled, though no one really searched for me. Police officers visited occasionally, inquiring about Ruslan and how he ended up in the cemetery. I lied, claiming ignorance. Perhaps they didn't believe me, but I had no desire to prove anything. I pretended to mourn my friend's loss, but this wasn't the truth. I became obsessed. I convinced myself it wasn't enough, that Ruslan could be brought back. I sought methods to accomplish this, visiting the cemetery each night, feeding the hungry creature with living people to discover how to resurrect him. She merely laughed, poisoning my mind further. Eventually, I broke down, wrote a confession about myself, and sent it away. I returned to the cemetery with another victim, Ruslan's mother. The woman was terrified, a pathetic coward. Her son would have volunteered willingly, but she had forgotten him. Hosted dinner parties for his friends, supposedly to keep his memory alive. Disgusting hypocrite. No matter. She would soon pay for her sins. My chest burned suddenly, and I collapsed as something hot spread throughout my body. Breathing became laborious. Then I saw flames and panicked. Major Volkov. During the arrest, Mikhail Vitalievich Treshin, born 1993, was shot fatally. He would bring people to the cemetery, terrify them until their hearts gave out, then bury them near the grave of a girl unknown to him previously. During the search, strange writings were discovered claiming the deceased was a vampire who required living humans for sustenance. Volkov examined the photograph on the headstone extensively, unable to comprehend what connected them or what had triggered the young man's psychological break. Without realizing it, he placed a copy of the photograph in his pocket. They managed to rescue Ruslan's mother, though she appeared to have also suffered a psychological breakdown from fear. She repeated bizarre things Mikhail had told her. Perhaps he had drugged her somehow. They would need to question her once she recovered. Meanwhile, they needed to find clues about what had happened to the young man. The elderly groundskeeper observed the trees beginning to sway, indicating that nothing had truly ended. But he could tell no one. He was merely an old cemetery watchman whom no one ever heeded. 3 nights after Mikhail's death, Major Volkov found himself jolting awake at precisely 3:17 a.m. The photograph from his pocket lay on his nightstand, though he had no recollection of placing it there. In the darkness, the girl's face seemed to shift and contort when viewed peripherally. His palm began to itch unbearably. Switching on his lamp, he discovered a thin, dark line crossing his lifeline, a mark he was certain hadn't been there before. The wound resembled a paper cut but oozed a substance too thick to be blood. The following morning, he requested access to the cemetery records. The girl's grave dated back 87 years. According to historical documents, 6 disappearances had occurred in the vicinity of the cemetery during the decade following her burial. Each investigation had stalled mysteriously. More disturbing were the parallels across time. Every 29 years, similar patterns of disappearances emerged, each series ending with the discovery of a charred body near her grave. The cycle had repeated 3 times before the current incidents. As Volkov drove home that evening, he found himself taking an unfamiliar route. Only when the cemetery gates came into view did he realize where his subconscious had guided him. The gates stood open despite the late hour, and somewhere among the tombstones, a figure in white waited. His hand reached for his service weapon as he stepped out of the car, but his palm, now bearing a fully blackened line, throbbed in synchronicity with the swaying of the cemetery trees. Well, if you watched this video to the end, it clearly interested you. Please take literally 20 more seconds to leave a comment, as your opinion or even just an emoji is all that's needed to help promote this content. Who better than you could help me with this? I suggest you watch some of my other videos, while I run off to write you a new story. I shake your hand if you a brother, and if you a girl, I give you a warm hug.